Good evening, everyone, and thank you for joining the Kuwait Foundation for the Advancement of Sciences webinar tonight. My name is Engineer Sarah Saeed, and I'm a Program Officer at the Research Directorate Department at KFAS, and I will be your moderator for tonight. This webinar is titled Announcement of the Second Call of Research Proposal for 2023, and it will provide insight for local researchers on how to submit research grant applications for the second cycle of KFAS call. This session will be running for approximately 1 hour. It will be recorded and uploaded on KFAS YouTube page, followed by a Q&A session after the talk. So feel free to leave your questions in the chat box on the right side. First of all, I would like to welcome Professor Ali Boumejdad, who is a consultant at the Research Directorate Department, for a short speech before introducing our speaker. Professor Ali, please join the floor.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. In today's webinar, we will focus on the process of submitting a research proposal to KFAS for funding. In a few minutes, I will explain to you some important recommendations that will help you to gain the advantage of getting the fund from KFAS. My first recommendation is actually before you start writing your proposal, you should familiarize yourself with the requirement and also the criteria for reviewing. This information is available online. You can go to KFAS website and all the documents are available. There is two important documents you should read very carefully. The first one is the call for research. You should read it very carefully and make sure you are aware of the priority topics and also the conditions. And the other document that is very important to read is actually the KFAS Research Grant Manual. Also, there is a link for it in the website. You need to read it carefully because there is some component you need to incorporate into your proposal, and if you don't do that, this might affect your chance to get funded. I'm going to leave for you a link of a talk that I gave a few years ago, actually 2 years ago, about how to write a successful research grant proposal. I'll leave it in the chat so you can watch it. I highly recommend watching this video because it will highlight the important aspect of writing a research proposal. The second recommendation is actually if you want to submit a proposal to KFAS, it is always helpful to consult with colleagues who already published a successful proposal before to KFAS. In your institute, there should be some people who already get funded by KFAS, so please talk to them before you submit your report. They will give you some instruction and maybe some guidelines. The third recommendation, very important one, is to make sure that your researcher ID at Web of Science is up to date and correct. This research ID, we use it for evaluation. And if you have, for example, multiple accounts or your name is not correctly written, this might affect your evaluation and your chance to get a fund. So please make sure to update your researcher ID at Web of Science, also the Scopus researcher profile and ORCID account. All these three are important, but the most important one is the Web of Science researcher ID. I will also add to you in the chat a link to a video recently. We have a webinar with the Scopus scientist who actually explained to you how to deal with your researcher ID in Scopus. So you can watch this video also. The fourth recommendation, please make sure to submit all the required and needed information and document in the proposal. We will not consider, we will consider actually the proposal as, if there is a missing document, we will not consider it and we will wait for you to complete the information. So please make sure the document that Dr. Maitham will mention to you today, to include it in the proposal, inside the proposal itself. There is important document like there is a letter called letter of intent. This should be uploaded into the system. Another letter or another important document is actually to write the details role of the research teams in the proposal. Each member of the research team should be assigned tasks and well explained in the proposal. You need information about the capacity building. You should write it into in the proposal also, and also a contingency or risk plan. This is something. This is a plan actually to describe if you have a problem during the project, what we will do. And also, if you have preliminary work, it's very useful usually to include it in the proposal. The fifth recommendation, if you are, you get acceptance, you need to sign a contract with KFAS. And in this signed contract, there is important information and conditions, and there is important dates. The dates of submitting the progress report, annual progress report, and the date for submitting the final report. You have to stick to these dates. If you are late with this date, this will affect the progress of the project. So please stick with the dates. And if in case you have emergency or you have some justified reason that you cannot stick with this date, you need to inform us at least 10 working days before the due date with justification, of course. And we will consider it at the KFAS Research Directorate, and the maximum extension that we can give you is actually 1 month. Last but not least, if you have any questions, you are most welcome to ask us today in the webinar after Professor Maitham talk. And also you are most welcome to send us an email or give us a phone call. Dr. Maitham presentation will give you also at the end of his talk these emails and the landline number, so you can send us an email or call us if you want more information. Now I will hand over the floor to Ms. Sarah to introduce Professor Maitham. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ali. So for now, I will introduce Professor Maitham Safar, who is a consultant at Research Directorate in KFAS. Professor Maitham received his PhD in computer science from the University of Southern California in 2000, served as chairman of the Computer Engineering Department at Kuwait University from 2014 to 2018, and published 2 books, 9 book chapters, and over 125 conferences and journal papers. Professor Maitham, the floor is yours, and now we shall start the presentation.
Thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Dr. Ali, and thank you, the attendants. I shall start the slideshow in a minute. Hopefully, we're just going to highlight basically the most important points that we have seen throughout the cycles, what the applicants are struggling with, and I'm going to highlight also some parties in each institute that should be responsible for those things. Actually. So I'm going to start the slideshow. I'm not sure whether it's already been uploaded, but give me a second. Okay, can you guys see the slides? Okay, so the purpose of the talk today was two things. We just want to announce the new call for the second cycle for this year, 2023. And as promised, since the early start of this year, that we're going to announce the call in August, and we stuck to that, and we're going to start the new call hopefully this August month, inshallah. That's why we said let's start presenting highlight the main important points for the PIs or the researchers when they want to submit their applications. And briefly, I'm going to go through the slides maybe for 20 to 25 minutes, and I'm going to leave most of the time or the floor open for the questions at the end. So what we are focusing on lately, especially in the last couple of years, due to the change in the strategy, we are focusing mainly on the national priority areas, and I'm going to highlight those areas. But we also leave the floor for basic research or something related to science, technology, and innovation. We still have the floor open for those proposals. However, they're going to have a less priority when it comes to funding than national priority areas. And the purpose of the grants program at KFAS is only to provide the necessary and to develop the performance of the research and scientific community in Kuwait. And as you can see from the stats that since 1976, KFAS have granted around 1,336, and I guess we granted a couple more in the past few weeks, which amounts to around 60 million KD. Now for the new call, the new call is going to start in August. The previous call we already started last January till February. We received a good number of applications in 3 categories. The applied applications, we had the most, what we pushed the researchers to do in the past 2 years, and I guess we did a good job in pushing them to have more applied research applications. As you can see, we had 53, and we had 28 basic applications, basic science or basic research applications, and 5 young researcher applications. And this is also a field that we are trying to push the researchers to work on, to apply, and we change a little bit in the criteria or the application process for the young researcher, which I'm going to go through it when I reach to that slide. So the new call is going to open, the system is going to be up by the 1st of August, and it's going to close on the end of October. So you're going to have 3 months to prepare and submit your applications. And as promised, again, we said this year we're going to stick to the same national priority areas that we announced in the first cycle. And this is exactly what we have done. And the areas that are going to be covered are health, education, energy, environment, water and food security, and digital transformation, and we added to it artificial intelligence. So we want to see more applications of artificial intelligence actually in the different areas that we have already in all national priority areas. We want to see the application of AI. And as I said, also, we open the floor for science and technology and innovation applications. If you are interested in submitting an application that an STI, then feel free to do that, but it's going to have a lower priority according to the available funds at the end of the year. We're going to see if we can fund those applications or not. Hopefully, most of the time we are capable of funding most of the applications actually. Again, the focus is we want to push the researchers to do more interdisciplinary research, which is between different majors or between different specialties. We want to see intersectoral also. So we want to see collaborative. And to be honest, in the past year, I've seen an increase in numbers of applications that they have those flavors, and which is a good sign that the researchers showing the researchers are responding to what we have been pushing them to do. And we also want to emphasize that lately we're focusing on applied research and translation of the research into innovative solutions and outcomes. And we have other departments at KFAS that can help the researchers, or if we see that the outcomes of the research are to the level that can be translated into solution and outcome, we can help them on that thing also. Now, a focus area, as I said, again, health, education, energy, environment, water and security. And in the digital transformation and the AI, you're going to see we focus on the same topics. You want to apply digital transformation and AI in energy, education, health, environment, water, and food security also. We did minor changes, and we tried to listen as much as possible to the feedback that we get from the researchers, and we do our best to accommodate and do the changes that can make their life easier, and also to organize things better. So we did minor changes in this core, and some of them you're going to be happy to hear about. And the first change is that we're going to limit the duration of the projects to be 6 months, 12 months, 18 months, 24, 30, and 60 months. So we're not going to have projects that are going to be lasting for 1 month, 2 months, and 3 months like before. So we have fixed durations that when you try to apply, using the application form, you're going to have those fixed durations are already built into the form itself. One of the requirements that we're going to be talking about today is co-funding. Co-funding is very important. As you know, that KFAS co-funds research projects, and we try as much as possible to fully fund the projects, but as you know, we have a limited budget, so we want to try to cover as many proposals as possible. So we ask you to have a co-fund, and this is something that we have seen a deficiency in with the researchers. I have a slide that's going to cover that part. I'm going to explain what co-fund means actually. And we also want to encourage more local collaboration. We have seen lately that there is an increase, but we want to hope to see more local collaboration. Regional and international collaborations are welcome as long as it is a real collaboration, which means that the researchers are going to do the work. Most of the work in Kuwait, the collaborators are, as it says, collaborators. They're not going to be the major player in the research as the PI or the co-Is here in Kuwait. We had before some documents or forms that were introduced in the past year and a half. And if you remember, I don't know who attended my talk before, we said that those forms were introduced not for the sake of KFAS, it's for the sake of the researchers to learn those things. And I think most of the researchers exercised using those forms, like the capacity building, data management, contingency risk management plans. Those three main forms were separate documents that you used to submit with the proposal. Now we're gonna have them incorporated in your proposal, so you have less documents to submit. The mandatory one is, of course, the capacity building plan. This is something that you have to include inside your proposal, and the reviewer, we made sure that the reviewer will review that part and will mark it also. So be sure that you include the capacity building plan that I'm going to explain using examples. What do we mean by capacity building plan? Data management plan, this was introduced, as we said, in the webinars that we had before. It's for you. It's for you to help you how to save your data, how to retrieve your data, how to maintain your data, but it's no longer compulsory. You can always refer to the templates and the forms that are posted on the website for your reference, but right now data management, it's not a mandatory part of the application, but if you want to include it in the proposal, this is a plus for you actually. Contingency and risk management or safety plans, this is very important whenever you feel that your project has risk factor or safety factor, or you think that there are things that can delay or hinder the execution of the project, then those things, they should be planned carefully and written inside the proposal. And the risk management is something that the reviewer also tries to look, especially when the project is huge or the budget is huge and or the duration is long duration. Now, is it compulsory? No, unless it is applicable to your application, actually. And there are specific questions that the reviewer might ask when he gets his feedback, and that we address it to the PI or to the researcher to answer. Ethical forms. Now, there are few projects that they need some ethical forms, especially when handling with people or animals, and especially when we see in the health area that most of the projects that they require ethical forms, and those should be obtained and submitted with the proposal itself as a separate document actually. The last but not least, which is the most important part of the application, is the letter of intent. This is something that I have seen few applications missing in the past cycles. And actually, this is very important. If we do not have the letter of intent, then we cannot accept the application. And I'm going to show you an example and tell you who should be responsible for issuing such a letter of intent, actually. Now, capacity building plan, this is, as I said, it's mandatory. It should be part of the proposal. Some people are confused or do not know how to write it down, but make it as simple as possible. You want to see how can you serve individuals, or how can you serve your department or organization as a part during the execution or after you're done with your project. Now, the main purpose of funding grants or doing activities is to build the capacity of researchers in Kuwait. So what we want to see the knowledge gained by the researcher is transferred to other people. We want to see the techniques, the skills, or whatever the researchers gain from their experiments or from the research they're conducting can be transferred to other people. Now, there are various means to do the capacity building. I have seen a lot of examples: workshops, technical demonstrations, mentoring, partnership with arrangements, cross visits, site tours, network building, information sharing. So you have a lot of venues that you can serve the capacity building. The most important part that you have to highlight it in the proposal, saying how the results or the techniques or the skills gained by the researchers are disseminated to other people, like in the department or in the research team or in their organization. Now, the priority criteria, we did not change much into this call, and we're going to have priority for early career, which are people with PhD within within the last 3 years, actually. And we're going to have priority for applied research, priority for local collaboration, intersectoral, international collaborators, interdisciplinary, and the engagement of junior researchers. And this is something also we asked the reviewer to take a look at or evaluate in the proposal. Does the researchers, do they include or engage junior researchers in the proposal or their work or not? And it would always help to show that you are committed to disseminate the output somehow, whether in a publication or public events. And sometimes, actually, in most of the research that we have been conducting, we have seen researchers having good reports when they are sent to reviewer. They have good scores, and usually we approach them to start organizing events that they can start disseminating the output of the researchers. There are few requirements, few documents that are posted with the call, and they're usually on the website. Those are the guidelines that you need to follow as a researcher. And I would highly recommend, if the people attending the webinar today, in each institute or that we are serving, there is an office for research, or there is a department, or there is an officer for research that coordinates between you guys, researchers from that institute, and KFAS. Now, it is the role of that person who's in contact, or the contact person between us and the other people in the institutions, to give those documents a good read and try to disseminate or highlight the most important parts of those documents to the researchers. Or if I were you as a researcher, I would download them, read them at least once, and keep them on the side and keep checking them. Those guidelines are going to help you. They are there to protect you. They are there to help you. And they are there to make sure that everything goes according to the bylaws and regulations that KFAS are following. So there is a guideline for intellectual property. Mostly, we're trying to save your rights for whatever production that you gain from your project. There's a code of research conduct, what you can do, what you cannot do, what is considered okay, and what is not considered okay. There is a guideline for authorship. Guidelines for authorship has been also modified this year. You're going to find a new version, and it shows that who controls or who can be an author on the outcomes from a research, and usually this is left to the PI to decide. And it usually includes the manpower team, that it has the whole team and the consultant and even the students involved in their publications. We have plagiarism policies. Those were posted online for a year or more. Please take a look at them, especially the contact persons in the institutions, because any submission that comes through KFAS, it goes through the plagiarism check. And let's be clear, we do not accuse people of plagiarizing things. Usually when we see high scores, we just alert them and we want to see explanation. And usually you as a PI or your institute has to see that report and tell us what went wrong in it. But usually it's just to help you write your proposals in a better way. And mostly, for example, we do not look into cases which are having a score of a plagiarism below 25, usually when it is above 25. But the policy explains everything. Please take a look at the policy and see, try at your local institution to do such a test before sending your application to us, or any report actually. The ethical breaches and misconduct policy, this is a new one, very important. Again, people that are responsible for the institute, the officer or the office or the Department of Research, they should read that carefully, and the PIs or the researchers, they should read it carefully. What is considered as ethical breach, what is considered as misconduct, and those they have consequences. They have consequences on the PI and sometimes in the worst case on their institutions, and those could reach up to banning, for example, a PI of applying to KFAS for a certain period of time. So please take a careful look at the ethical breaches and misconduct policy that is posted online. Now, budget, this is something that we have seen or been struggling with the PIs, and we understand your problem. We try to work on it, and we have done a little one more change that's going to make you happy this call actually. Now we opened the floor also to apply for capital expenditure. So CapEx is supported if you want to get equipment. But again, be realistic, have limits. Do not put the whole budget to be only purchasing equipment. So try to balance between manpower, OPEX, and capital. So this application or this cycle, you can apply for CapEx but we have certain restriction based on the budget. The numbers we can highlight individually, or it's based on project by project and depends on the cost itself. Now, two things that we have been asking researchers to submit, and you need the help of your institution. Believe me, you cannot do it yourself. So the people responsible in your institution, they have to help you with this. And I have seen actually most of the institutions that I dealt with in last cycle, they did a good job actually on this, but still we're struggling with few researchers that they did not get what we are talking about. Direct costs, those are of course the ones that are related to your research execution. Indirect costs, this is the overhead cost that we have been asking the institutions to include inside or to provide it for the PIs to be included in their applications. So the applicants, they have to consult their institutions before applying. They have to get an estimate on those numbers from their institutions. And those are not the costs that are a burden on the institution, but not associated with this particular research. For example, facilities, utilities, research admin services, offices, lab, whatever the institute is having as an expense that for a building, for whatever that the researchers in that institute are using. And usually, to be honest, those are most of the times are estimates, so they are not exact. But we want you to highlight that inside the applications. And of course, if you have in-kind contributions, please list them also in the resources. For the indirect cost, please, usually we do not like to see the salaries of the researchers in it. We want to see the other indirect costs. Now, maybe most of you know how to apply. You need to go to grants.kfas.org.kw. If you have not created an account, you can simply go to that website. It's going to ask you here, you have an option to request an account. Simply fill out your profile, and we're going to grant you access to the system itself. And most of you, I think in the past year, we had less questions on how to use the system. It's only for those new applicants that they need to create their accounts. If you have any questions, you can always contact us.
Hello and welcome to the KFAS.
Now, we have posted all the resources on the website and within the call, and within also in the PDF files of the course, you can find them for the documents that I have highlighted. As I said, the data management are kept there, but it's not mandatory. You can take a look at them. And the guidelines and the manuals also for the research grant manual and the young researcher manual, they are also there for you to take a look at the guidelines that we have. Now I'm going to start showing you a few examples on how to submit your documents or organize your documents. And the most important one that we have been struggling with the researchers, some of the researchers, at some institutes, they're doing it professionally. It's the letter of intent. You as a researcher, you cannot submit your application directly to KFAS without having the permission or the authorization or from your institute. So what happens usually, if you are planning to submit an application, you have to contact your research department office or officer showing your intent to apply for KFAS. And what usually the internal processes at the institutions, I think usually they request you to submit your proposal to them to be verified, checked, and then you can upload it to the system. And usually it takes time, so I advise all the researchers to submit those documents to their institute at least 1 month before the closing cycle, and because usually the internal processes at your institutions takes a week or two. And the letter of intent, I had a lot of people asking, what is a letter of intent? I'm showing you a sample. It's simply any letter that's coming from the authorized person from your institute. For example, for Kuwait University, Lamin Al-Am Bil-Inaba, Jamiat Kuwait, he's the one that's responsible for communication outside Kuwait University, and he's communicating directly to KFAS. So what we are looking for, a letter coming from your institute to us, not from your department, not from your college, not from your dean, no, coming from the actual person responsible for research or actual person responsible for communication outside your institute. And the letter simply that should show that the institute wanna support the PI to submit the application to KFAS. And as you can see here in Arabic, it shows that this is KUs showing that the proposal is enclosed or approved, and they mentioned the title of the proposal, and they're asking KFAS to look into that proposal for funding, which means for me that they have looked into it and they have approved that this proposal can be submitted to KFAS. So this is simply what we mean by a letter of intent. So please try to get this. You need to get it as soon as possible from your research department. So if your proposal is ready, you can submit it to them and get this letter out of them from that department as soon as possible. If you have any doubts or you have no idea who's the person responsible for issuing such letters at your institute, we can also help you because we have the contacts. Now, capacity building plan, also I'm going to show you from actual applications. Now you can be fancy or you can be it can be straightforward. You can do whatever format, but as long as you convey the message or you convey the content that we are looking for. This one is from the last cycle using the template. if you want to include this template within your application, it's also.
دكتور ميثم بس ممكن you show the letters again اللي بالعربي لأنه ما كانوا واضحين.
This one? Is it showing?
لا, the ones you showed earlier, it's not shown.
This is the only one I've shown in Arabic.
We can't see anything now.
You cannot?
No.
Yeah, you need to share it, Dr. Maitham. It's not shared.
I did.
Maybe you have to close.
Okay, okay, let me try again. Now?
Yes, perfect.
I don't know, but it was showing that it's okay. So this is the letter, as it's shown. It's coming from Kuwait University to KFAS. Now, capacity building, as I said, I'm not gonna read through it, but I'm gonna highlight the parts that I think important. For example, those that were trying to do capacity building on individual level. So the research team or the other researchers, they're gonna call and work, provide training for them. They're gonna provide counseling for them. They want a mentorship also, some researchers in their institute. And within their application, they want to translate the research and have research group development. So they're going to have, I guess, meetings with other research groups to talk about what they're doing in their project. And they also went to the extent that outside their institute, they want to be engaged with their stakeholders and partners to communicate with them and share with them the activities that they had. And they organized their activities actually, and they highlighted for each part what they're going to be doing and who's going to be doing it and who's going to be delivering and who's going to be receiving. You might not want to go into that too much details, but at least show the type. For here they say they're going to have formal training. Here they say they're going to have in-job training, and those shows the activities that they're going to do to reach to that, to have a good capacity building plan. Now, data management, I'm going to go through it fast since it's not mandatory, but in short, what it does, how you're going to, the data that you're going to be generated in the from the research, how it's going to be saved, formatted, preserved for access in the future, and how it's going to be shared with other people, and how it's going to be secured. And this was the most important part of the data management. If you want to follow this, it's not compulsory anymore, but it's for you. And we were pushing people to have their data to have open access for the data also, if possible, so more people can share their data. Those examples, I'm going to share them after the talk. Maybe I'm going to post them on the website of KFAS. Now, this is a very good written data management plan that you want to take a look at. Also, this management plan goes into more details. Actually, it's more comprehensive. That shows the exact amount of data, the exact experiment part that can generate the data, and people engaged in generating the data, and what formats, standard formats used to generate the data actually, and where it's going to be preserved, and for how long, and how can you access that data actually, and how can you share it and reuse it. Now, risk and safety management plan. This is something also that you have to write. You can incorporate it inside your application, and you want to highlight what are the risk parts in execution of your project. So you're gonna see the potential. For example, you have potential health hazard due to collection of waste water samples, and this shows that this is something that they need to address, and they need to plan for it if something happens. For example, they plan to provide immunization for the people working on the project. Now, one of the risk management is delays in purchasing feed. How are you going to handle and purchasing the equipment. How are you going to handle this, for example? You should plan it. You should not assume that the minute you get the fund, the equipment will arrive, especially if you're in a governmental institute. You need to put some time and plan it during carefully in your project, actually. Dissemination plan, I'm going to show you an example. Okay, it shows I've done the experiment, how people are going to see my output or outcomes. So one way is through final report, one way is through having conducting workshops, seminars. One of them is to publish, and this is something that we want to start pushing people to and encourage them to have publications out of the projects. So this is, you're going to see in the coming year, we're going to put more emphasis on it and trying to publish. Now, when it comes to CV, we got the feedback from the researchers, and we did our best to reduce the CV template, but you still have to fill it out. It's part of your account profile. So when you create an account, there is a profile that you need to fill out, and there is a template for the CV, which is a very short CV template. Plus, this time we're going to ask you to upload your regular CV if you want to. So you have the 2 CVs now to be uploaded, the one using very short template, which is going to be important for internal evaluation, that has basic personal details, your affiliation, your degrees, and your awards or patents, and simply your research experience or interest in that area, and if you have any related publications to the project that you are submitting, and of course patents. 3-way agreement, this is something that you need to put in the plan also, that you need to work on it. This is something for projects that they have collaborators and being paid outside Kuwait. And this is something that you need to fill out during this contract signing, but the document is there. Take a look. You can consult your collaborators outside Kuwait and see if they work on it to put their details. And usually it just lays down the responsibilities and the team and how the work is distributed between the people in Kuwait and people outside Kuwait. So you can take a look at it. This is a sample, empty sample that your institutions, most of your institutions, they already know how to fill it out, but you as a researcher also, you need to share this with your collaborators outside Kuwait. This is also available online for you to download. So I guess ethical breaches, we have uploaded the document, as I said. Please take a look at that document when you go and read it, especially see what is considered as a breach, what is not considered. For example, falsification of data, double tipping, plagiarism, and self-plagiarism. We have a definition of it. Take a look at it. Falsification of data, fabrication of data, mismanagement of conflict of interest, mismanagement of the funds, invalid authorships, and so on. And it shows the level or the type of the violation and what are the breaches that, or the violations that can be considered into that level. We have a code of research conduct also. As I said, this is what you can do, what you cannot do during the execution of your project. This is a long document, so if interested, you can read it online. We have plagiarism policies, or you can download a copy of it. They're all in PDFs. Plagiarism policies, we show our definition of plagiarism and what are our policies, especially when it comes to publication from a conference or a journal, and referencing your own work or other people's work, and what are the thresholds that we are setting for those policies. So please take a look at it. And as I highlighted, above 25% using the Authenticate software would raise an alarm, actually. Guidelines for authorship, it shows to you how do you handle publications. And in short, the PI and his team are the ones that usually come up or show up in the publications, but we give the authority to the PI to decide who's eligible or not eligible according to certain criteria, which is mentioned inside the guideline, to go through and see if somebody to be included or not. The second call, the PDF files are already online. You can download for the basic and applied young researcher and policy research also. And of course, we have included also the research grant manual and the young researcher. So this is pretty much what I have, and I try to leave the floor for questions. If you have any questions, if we'll try to answer as much as possible. The ones that we're not gonna be able to answer, we get back to you, or we'll post the answers in the Q&A on our website. So Dr. Ali, if you wanna help me in getting the questions, and Sarah, please, if you wanna start, open the floor for the questions.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Maitham. I'm sure the audience enjoyed this presentation and benefited from the information. Okay, so we have few questions actually. So I'll start with the question regarding the letter of intent. So the first one is, who should we contact at Kuwait University for the letter of intent? And there is another question that says, the letter of intent should be sent directly to KFAS from Office of Charge of Research in the institution. Is this direct submission through online application, or how do they send it to KFAS? Via email or mail? These are two questions regarding letter of intent.
At KU, they have a research directorate, and they should contact them. I think right now it's Dr. Nuria Al-Kandiri, so they can contact her. She can provide the letter to the PI, to the researcher, or the PI, to be honest. And the PI has the responsibility to upload the letter with his proposal. So before the end of the cycle, I would recommend a month at least to contact the research department, with your proposal, and try to get the letter of intent from them for you to upload with your application, because you are responsible to upload the letter as a PI.
Okay, so the second question is, who is meant by researchers here? Only doctor researchers? Can student researchers apply?
Well,
can I elaborate?
Dr. Ali, go ahead.
Yes, can I elaborate on this part, because there is a new things. Actually, the researcher is actually the principal investigator. He's the head of the research. Actually, the co-investigators, they can be his colleagues from the same institute, or can be from outside institute, local or international. The third type of researcher can be the consultant, who actually gets some money. There is a limit for this money, also mentioned in the grant manual. Please read it carefully when you write the budget. These are three type of actually researchers, and of course you can hire researcher with MSc or PhD, or even a bachelor degree, or even technicians in the project, but the salary will be different according to your own institute. So in KISR, maybe they can only hire part-time researchers. In KU, they can hire full-time researchers with different salaries. Each institute have their own regulation, and we actually go with them. Regarding the student, we consider this is as very important actually issue, whether the student is MSc, PhD, or even a bachelor degree student who do his project, let's say the last year project. This is important. We encourage you to include student. We consider it as the most important actually aspect of capacity building. For KISR, because it's not an academic institute, they should involve, let's say, junior researcher. I mean, not very senior researchers. These also can be considered as capacity building to train a junior researcher. This is in general the question about the student, the researcher.
Dr. Ali, may I add, because I said I'm going to say this, for the young researcher, for the past 2 cycles, we faced some technical problems with the institute. So we changed the application process right now. So if you have a student who's interested in conducting a research, he should get a mentor from his institute or another institute. And the mentor is the one who has to apply for the application right now, because the mentors are easier for them to get the letter of intent from the institutes. So this is the change that we have done for young researcher, and we encourage you to incorporate and push your undergraduate and graduate students to go into research. And those students, they have to select their mentors, and the mentor is the one who's going to be responsible to submit the application.
Okay.
Any more questions?
So, yes, so I'll go to the other question. I think a lot of people are confused because they don't know that we have 3 types of grants. So we have for the young researcher, and we have the basic grant, and we have the applied grant. So this question is, please advise maximum number of projects that an individual can submit. Has the previous limitation been removed?
For applications, you can apply as many as you want, but what happens right now, a researcher can have 2 ongoing research projects, whether as a PI or a co-I, from an institute, except for KISR, they can have 3 projects. Maybe, I'm not sure, but I'm not sure about this, but maybe Dr. Ali in the future will look into the limitation, lifting out the limitation, but this is something that we need to think. But as an application, go ahead and submit. Maybe all your applications will be accepted, but you cannot start them all at the same time. We'll see how many applications or grants you have right now, and we'll limit you to the limits that are imposed right now.
Okay, so there's another question. Is there a template for the grant proposal that we should fill it up and must use?
Actually, no, but what you can do, you can simply log into the system. Once you log into the system, the form is there. You can fill it out. And most of the times, those forms are consistent with what we have been using before, except minor changes in them. And usually what the proposer is going to ask you, it's going to ask you to provide your personal information if there's something missing, to provide information about the research team, to provide the execution task plan, and to provide to upload the documents, and simply going to ask you a few questions. So there is the objectives from your proposal, you need to upload them also in the form, but nothing in the form that is out of ordinary. This is something that relates to your profile and summary of the main parts of the proposal, like the title and the abstract.
Okay, so we have a question. This is regarding the young researcher applicant. Regarding the age limit for a young research, it says it's 33. So what if by the end of the cycle of application, the researcher is 34? Will KFAS make an exception?
For me, according to the bylaws that we have, it is at the time of the application, but I guess this is something that the RD manager, Dr. Ali, or the DDG at KFAS has to look into. So per that application, we might need to consider a different case. But for me, it's at the time of the application, you have to be 33 or less.
I think he should, if he submit before he become 34, we'll consider him as 33. But he should submit before the age of 34, before his date of birth.
Okay, so this question is, do only Kuwaiti citizens are allowed to apply for the grant? Not foreign scholars in Kuwait?
Right now, it's open for everyone. The team, you can apply expats and Kuwaitis, not necessarily to have a Kuwaiti on the team. You can, as an expat, apply by yourself also.
Okay, so we have a question. What about the regulations which govern the authorship in any publications related to the funded proposal, as the proposal has a dynamic activities?
Yeah, we understand this, and actually, me and Dr. Ali were working on changes into that. But it's all what we have said right now. It's all up to the PI, but he has. If he includes people who are not part of the team of the project, they have to at least, or we have the right to ask him to justify the addition of those co-authors on the publication. So usually we would expect the publication to have co-authors from as a part of the team. If they are not, then they have to justify it. If we see that this has been misused, but most of the times we're not going to ask them. And authorship guidelines has more details on it, actually.
Right.
I would recommend that they download the new version, which is posted, that highlights this point exactly. Even the involvement of students, which are not part of the team, which is accepted also, that to be included in their publication. For us, the most important part is that when you publish out of a grant, you should acknowledge the grant, you should acknowledge KFAS, and you should acknowledge your institute also.
Okay, so this question says, I had a full research and it's already published, but my question is, the submission in KFAS, will it help us to get patent?
Can you repeat the question? It's not clear that.
I think they're asking because they had a full research and it's been published, and whether the submission, whether KFAS will help them get patented.
Oh, okay. This is something that not KFAS directly would do, but I think SAC, Sabah Al-Ahmed Center, can help them through the patent process. But I would encourage you, before you go through the patent application, that you consult your research department at your institute, because some of the institutes, they reserve the right for patents coming out of the research project. So if you are at KU, for example, and you want to apply for a patent, consult your research department before applying through SAC.
Okay, so so there's questions regarding the budgets. So I'll put them both together. So can you elaborate on indirect cost and also on capital expenses? So I don't know, Dr. Maitham, if you have.
Yeah, CAPEX is for equipment. It's well known that you need to purchase equipment to conduct your research. This was allowed before, and KFAS stopped it for a while, but now it's open again that you can start purchase equipment related to your research and utilize them in your research. The only thing that we're going to do, we have restrictions on the amount of the equipment. If it is above 10,000 KD, then you need justification. You have to justify it. And we need to see evidences if you are granted, we need to see evidence of purchase, and we might ask you to document the equipment purchased and send us details about it so we can share the information with other researchers that might be interested in using it in the future. So those are restrictions, the only restrictions that we have. The in-kind is any expense that institute has to pay, which is indirectly not related directly to your research project. For example, your institute has expenses for maintaining the labs, for electricity, those things. So for you as a researcher, you have to get in contact with your research department or research office or research officer And that research officer should be guiding you or providing you with those numbers plus the letter of intent. I have seen one of the institutes in the past, when they submitted the letter of, they enclosed those numbers, and the researchers were having the copy of that letter of intent with the indirect cost, and they incorporated it into the application immediately.
So, Dr. Maitham, I think we're running out of time, but I'll ask a few questions quickly. So, this is the most common question we always get. How long does it take to evaluate the proposal?
So if it is less than 10,000, it needs only one reviewer. If it is between 10,000 and 25, it needs 2 reviewers. Above 25, from 25 to 50,000, it needs 3 reviewers. Above 50, it needs also like a research council inside KFAS to look into it. And those reviewers are all international reviewers. And the average internationally to do a review, to have 3 reviewers replying or reviewing a proposal, it's not only at KFAS, it's all the funding agencies. It's between 6 to 8 months. We're trying to expedite that with the new changes that Dr. Ali is working on. We're trying to reach that. On average, we're doing 6 months to 7 months right now. The only reason is that there are certain areas or certain specialties that we have a hard time finding reviewers. For the rest of the applications, no, we're doing fine. Usually it takes 3 to 4 months to get that thing. So the difficulty is in having people to accept to review, but once they commit for reviewing, within a month we get the review of the reviewer.
Right, so someone is asking, what is the maximum budget per project and what is the maximum budget for all projects collectively? Can I collaborate with international team as a co-investigator and still apply to the grant?
Yes, of course. We said external collaboration is open, but it is limited. Most of the work has to be done. Above 50% of the work has to be done in Kuwait. So above 50% of the budget, logically has to be spent in Kuwait. And the project,
I think he means that he wants to be a co-investigator and then the collaborator to be the principal.
No. Only people in Kuwait can be the PIs for the project, and the outsiders are the co-Is, the collaborators. And that's why we call them collaborators or co-investigators. And the caps on any project, right now there is no cap, but we have a limited budget. So if usually I see difficulty applying for projects above 200,000. So you can apply. You can try it, but let's see. But this one from experience, try to limit your budget because you have a limited budget. So try to limit your project budget to be below 200 to have a good opportunity or chance to be accepted.
Okay, so so is it allowed to resubmit the rejected proposal again?
Definitely, as long as there is a change in it. Otherwise, you cannot just resubmit it as is. Once the project was rejected or the proposal was rejected, usually we send out the reviewer comments, take them into consideration, and show to us that you took into consideration the reviewer comments in the revised proposal.
Okay, there is a question. It's a very specific question. What category does software purchase fall under? This is another budget question.
Software goes under operational expenses because it's not a hardware, it's not a manpower, so the logical place for it, operational expenses.
Okay, so some projects would need much more longer duration, for example, health projects. What would be the recommendation for example, for a 10 years project?
You can simply break the project into phases, submit the phase. Maximum you have 3 years. So your first phase has to be for 3 years. second phase, you can have it for 3 years. But plan it from the beginning and clearly state that you're going to have a long project, but submit one at a time. You cannot submit all at the same time, or you cannot submit a project which has 10-year duration. Maximum is 3 years.
Okay, so Dr. Maitham, we're getting a lot of questions regarding the young researcher and their mentor. So can we explain again what is meant by the research mentor?
Yeah, research mentor. Now, the student, if he cannot apply for the research project by himself, but he has to be supervised or directed by a mentor who is somebody in his institute. For example, if I am at Kuwait University, student, graduate student, undergraduate student, I would seek the help of the faculty members at Kuwait University. The faculty is going to be supervising the student and help him to write the proposal. And so the supervisor is the one who's going to submit the proposal, and supervisor is the one who's going to supervise the student in executing the proposal itself. And those young researcher projects are meant to be for 1 year and a budget of 5,000 KD only.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Maitham. I think we reached the end of our night. I would like to thank everybody for their questions and attending this webinar. Kindly, if you have further questions or if we didn't answer your questions, you can email us. I would like to ask everybody to fill the survey, which is pinned in the chat. Thank you, Professor Maitham and Professor Ali. Thank you all and have a good night.
Thank you, Sarah. And please collect the questions from the chat also, so we can answer them and post the answers in the Q&A on our website. And you can send them a link for it later for them to look into.
Yes, please. I would like to remind everybody that this session is recorded and it will be posted later on KFAS YouTube or in this session. Thank you all. Thank you.